Okay, I'm at the historic Fort Mifflin. Now, Fort Mifflin was definitely used during the Revolutionary War times. Okay, I just wanted to mention, we're going to go into about the fort itself, but I wanted to mention some of these guns. Now, I'm right by the Philadelphia International Airport, so you're going to hear a couple planes flying over. I'm going to stop occasionally. Okay, this facility is located right near the Philadelphia International Airport. Now, the guns you see behind me are French. Now, these came over from France, probably during the Revolutionary War period, between 1776 to about 1781. Now, these are siege weapons. The weapon on the far, I guess it would be left, the larger cannon, is a naval gun. That would have been aboard a ship. Now, that's about 14 to 15 pound balls come out of that gun. The second in the line is a mortar, very rare. It's a French mortar. It would lob shells that would explode. The next cannon you see is a cannon that would be used on a carriage. It would be on a carriage being pulled by horses. This is an 8-pound siege gun. It would fire an 8-pound ball. Now, these guns are rare. They're made out of bronze. Now, during the Revolutionary War, like I said, during the Battle of Brandywine, there was a stipulation that there might have been an 8-pound gun at Brandywine battlefield. We don't know that, but we know there were 4- and 6-pound guns there. This gun is large, it's heavy. To pull this, you need a team of about 6 horses to pull this carriage, and then the ammunition that went along with it. Now, being bronze, they were more expensive to produce. Now, during this time, guns were made out of iron. They were cast in one large piece, usually at foundries. Now, the American cause made their own weapons during the Revolutionary War. They made them at Hopewell furnaces, and they also made them at Hopewell and Warwick furnaces made guns for the American cause. These guns were made in France. They have French insignia on them. There's a plane going over. That these weapons are on, these are naval carriages. These would have put aboard a ship. They would have stuck these guns through portholes on the side of the vessel with ropes. They would have pulled on the ropes and pushed the guns through a porthole. When the guns fired, they would recoil and come back into the ship. They would reload these cannons between about every 2 minutes, and they would pull them back out and they would fire. The gun on the far opposite side is a gun that would be used aboard a ship. This gun is a pulled gun. Now, during the Yorktown invasion, when Washington invaded Yorktown, he used French pieces. He used a lot of cannons that were used during a battle as siege weapons. Now, these guns were used as siege weapons. This gun, the furthest gun right here, the closest gun, was used as a siege weapon during the Battle of Yorktown in 1781. Now, Fort Mifflin itself is located on Mud Island. Now, this isn't an island today, it's part of Hog Island. Hog Island is a new name for Mud Island. Now, during 1771, when this fort was being constructed, this was an island. You had to come by a raft or ferry to get here. Now, what they did during probably around World War I or the late 1890s is they filled this in. They filled this area in, and they put a World War I shipyard that was located in this general area. This area was used because it was building ships during World War I. A little more about these guns. Now, the French supplied us with a lot of different fighting weapons during the Revolutionary War. They brought commanders over, like Lafayette. They brought weapons like this over for the American cause. Now, during the winter of 1777, when Washington was stationed at Valley Forge, he had different people a report to him to say that the French were involved in our Revolutionary War cause. This was good for the Americans because we were going to get weapons, we were going to get cannons and powder and different things like that for the cause. These guns were probably brought over about 1780. They were brought over aboard a ship. They were unloaded. They were used in the American cause. Now these guns are different from the American guns. These are bronze and they're larger. So they had to bring their crews over also to man these weapons. Now a gun like this that you see right here would have been manned by 6 troops. There'd be 4 on each side and there'd be a guy in the back and there'd be a loader. The gentleman in the back would take the ammunition and give it to the loader. The loader would put the powder down, he would swab the barrel. The 2 guys on the side made sure that everything was done properly. They made sure that the gun placement was right. They made sure the aiming was right. Another plane. These Continental artillerists, or the French artillerists that manned these weapons, were the best. They had the best Continental uniforms. They weren't raggly-taggly guys like the Army guys. They knew their jobs. They knew how to load these weapons and they knew how to fire them efficiently. An 8-pound French gun like this, most likely used at the Battle of Brandywine, could throw a ball almost maybe about 3 miles on a good shot. Now they could pin you from 500 yards, no problem with these weapons. Now Fort Mifflin, when they were defending Fort Mifflin, I'll get into that a little further, they used weapons like this to defend Fort Mifflin or Mud Island at the time. Now another aspect is this mortar over here. That's a French mortar, it's a very large mortar. Now the British Army had mortars. Mortars were mounted on carriages, or they were carried by hand. This one would have been carried by about 5 guys or 6 guys would have carried this mortar. It's a very heavy piece. It probably was carried by horse also to be moved. They would put a shell down there. Usually it was round, had a fuse on top. They turned the fuse to the back end where they put the powder. The ball would be fired into the air, and when it was fired, it lit the fuse. It would traverse a certain trajectory and land on the enemy, and then exploding on the ground, hopefully killing people. That's what that mortar right there did. Now that's a French mortar. These mortars were probably used during the Battle of Yorktown. Now, where I'm standing here, like I said, this was Mud Island. This was completely mud, just like it said. There was no grass here. There was only a couple infrastructures here to protect this facility. Now what they wanted to do with Fort Mifflin is they wanted to protect the waterways, which they did efficiently against the British for a certain amount of time. I'll get into that in another video. But I did want to show that these cannons here were French-made pieces that were brought over for the American cause, most likely around 1780.